Hello, I'm Kats, and welcome to today's video. So today we're going to be doing another episode of Free-to-Play Champion Showcase, and this time we're covering the long-awaited Lydia the Deathsiren, the ultimate reward from normal mode Faction Wars. Now, Lydia is an extremely powerful, reliable, versatile champion that can be used in so many different areas of the game, and she is definitely worth your effort if you're more in the early and the mid-game progressing, worth your while to pursue her in clear faction or normal mode Faction Wars as soon as is reasonable, I shall say. So let's walk through her kit. I'll show you guys the build that I have on her, and I'll showcase her in a couple of areas where I use her on my account. Diving straight in, let's talk about the A1. She does have a lot of text on the A1, but essentially she has a 100% chance when booked of placing a fear on the enemy when she attacks them, and then she can also extend the duration of poison sensitivity that she places. We'll see that on her A3. The passive effect is essentially whenever an ally has some CC placed on them, she will counterattack the person who placed it, or if it places it on multiple people, she will counterattack extra people based on at random based on how many times your team got CC'd. So if they put a true fear on everyone on your team and she doesn't proc the fear on herself, obviously, then she would counterattack 3 times for the fear on everyone else. Her A2 is definitely her big money ability here, Siren's Wail, with a 100% chance of placing decreased defense and weaken for 2 turns, and also placing a strengthen and increased speed buff for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Very, very powerful ability, and is definitely the hallmark of her kit. But it doesn't necessarily end there. There are other elements that make her particularly useful depending on your use case. On the A3, attacks one enemy 2 times. The first hit will place the poison sensitivity that we hinted at before, and the second hit will place block buffs and block active skill. So a single target lockout potentially, with also blocking the buffs, and if you're synergizing with a poison team, you have poison sensitivity to boot. And this is also on a 3-turn cooldown. Lastly, we have her passive, which has a couple of nuances to it which are kind of interesting. So this has the deny revival ability, meaning that it can deny the revival attempt of enemies. If the enemy tries to revive and Lydia is dead here at the bottom, then it will instead revive her at 50% HP, 50% turn meter, and it will of course deny that revival. It doesn't matter if it's single target or if it's AoE, it will just deny it outright, similar to how the Viper form of the Chimera works. I guess it's somewhat based on her passive. But if she is instead alive, then she'll still deny the revival, but she'll revive all dead allies with 50% HP and turn meter. Or if no one on your team is dead at the time, then it will just grant her an extra turn after denying the revival. This will ignore block revive, so that can be some way. It's not super reliable, but it can be a way to get around the fact that your champion happened to have been block revived. And then lastly, we have her aura, which is 100 resistance in arena battle. So she's not as much of an arena champion as she used to be. She used to be fairly common in the arena, especially to counter certain things like Marishka's. She works, I mean, she still works great for that. Duchesses, anyone with a big AoE revive. Cardinals, great team, or great into her as well. But yeah, a niche aura, but nonetheless can be useful in the right situations. So now let's talk about the build that I have on my Lydia. And honestly, the build of your Lydia will definitely tell or broadcast where you are in your progression, because she can be built in so many different ways. A few examples off the top of my head: you could put her in a shield set if she is your seer activation champion, meaning you just want an extra buff on the team in addition to her buffs, in addition to obviously placing decreased defense a weaken that can help supercharge your seer. I have seen her in the likes of reflex or cursed for Hydra. Obviously, curse set will give you the hex on top of her AoE, which can be useful. Reflex can, or merciless, can reduce the cooldown of the A2. That way you can spam it and have more uptime on your debuffs. Perception is obviously going to be good. That will benefit her kit. And if you're more super end game, more focused on like Chimera, you might see 9-piece feral sets or 9-piece protection sets. In my case, I have her in a little bit of an end game, but kind of mostly a hybrid style build here. She has 4-piece protection, which is kind of with Chimera in mind, and then also double perception just to get her to the right level of stats. I do have her in terms of stats in a very, very unique build, and I'll describe it as we go through the stats here. 65,000 on the HP, 3,800 on the defense, 280 on the speed, so on the faster side, but nothing crazy. And then 447 on the resistance, and then 500 on the accuracy. So my Lydia, as we'll see, I use her both in a lot of Doom Tower, or against a lot of Doom Tower bosses, and so I don't want her to get her abilities locked or her to get CC'd by something. So I want her to always have her abilities abilities ready to go. So 450 plus ish resistance is what you would need to resist things in Doom Tower Hard or up and through Doom Tower Hard. But on the flip side, I also want her to land her debuffs, specifically all the way up to Ultra Nightmare Chimera. And so having 500 ish accuracy, I think it's 475 plus, but somewhere around 500 accuracy is what you would need in order to do both of those things at the same time. So my focus on her was as much speed as possible, but targeting 450 resistance and 475 on the accuracy. Really quickly, let's go through the gear pieces, but based on the stats, you can probably anticipate how she's going to be built. So we have an accuracy banner here with some speed on it. We have a protection ring with some resistance and some accuracy. I have protection amulet, protection ring as well with some survivability stats, defense with HP. On the boots, we have speed, of course, with resistance and a little bit of accuracy. The chest, we have defense percentage with speed, accuracy, and resistance. On the gloves, we have HP percentage, the opposite, with speed and resistance. On the shield, speed, resistance, accuracy, of course. The helmet, speed, resistance, accuracy, says sensing the trend here. And then the weapon, resistance, speed, and accuracy. All right, future Kads here, and I realized I forgot something in this part of the video. Today's video is sponsored by... I'm just kidding. No, I forgot to talk about Lydia's mastery, so I'll summarize those really quickly. Her masteries and her blessing, but yeah, missed a little bit in the original recording of this video. But her blessing is Brimstone. It's only 1 star, so we have that on her. Good for PvE, just, you know, a little bit of extra damage against bosses. And more importantly, the masteries. These are the masteries that I have on my Lydia. She's kind of more optimized for PvE in general, but just in order to get the stats that we already went over, I opted to go for Eagle Eye to index more into the accuracy to make sure that we have enough accuracy to land her debuffs against specifically Chimera in this instance. But yeah, support tree, a lot of the accuracy stuff, beelining our way down to Eagle Eye, the defense tree, a lot of the defensive stuff, a healthy mix of arena-esque type masteries with the tanky stuff, solidarity for more resistance, and then of course retribution and deterrence, which is good for counterattacking. Obviously she automatically counterattacks, but sometimes she may or may not counterattack enough times based on the target who plays the debuff to someone on your team. So now let's take a tour of a couple of areas where I have used her. She's obviously one of, like I said, the most versatile champions, so she can be your debuffer across any of the dungeons, but in my case I have a bunch of my teams are fairly optimized for each of their respective dungeons, but I do use her. She's definitely plug and play for the event dungeon, so we can quickly run the team that I run there. But what I recently changed, because I tweaked the speeds on some of my champions, but I have a Thortrix Lamasu in the lead now. But yeah, pretty much as you'd expect, she's the primary debuffer for the team. We have Lamasu in there for the block buffs, and then we have Wukong to do the one-shot thing for the minions. We have her flip over, and then we basically just kind of DPS her down in the old form. You might notice as well that Brogni is also in a protection set in this case for slightly different purpose, but nonetheless they kind of share that. So there's a chance that she can protect the strengthen and the increased speed, which looks like unfortunately didn't happen this time around, but Brogni can protect the increased attack and the block debuffs, which can be useful. So this team takes usually around 40-ish seconds depending on RNG. Obviously she is kind of somewhat random with whenever she decides to crit, and that can boost her turn meter and make her take turns at a sequence. So this is looking more like a 45-50 second or so. But yeah, there you go. Vlad gets the final shot. So yeah, 50 seconds. So depending on RNG, that's about the speed of the team. But again, pretty obvious. This is more of your standard Lydia utility where she's just your debuffer for whatever team. Could be, again, a seer activation for the waves. Could be helping you kill bosses and whatnot. In this case, it's helping us deal with the event dungeon. Next, let's hop over to Doom Tower. So there's a couple of bosses in this rotation that I do make use of her kit. And we'll start off with the quicker one, which is the Magma Dragon. Pretty much the same as you'd expect. So she's just the primary debuffer for the squad here. We've got Newt in the mix for his nudiness. We've got Whisper in the mix because she's one of the best boss killers in the game. We have Sentinel in the mix. Who the heck is Sentinel? He's a rare champion, but he has one of the highest, if not the highest, A1 provoke chances at an 85% clip. And so he's our provoke champion for the sake of the Magma Dragon to keep him controlled. And then, yeah, Vlad's there for the AoE damage, mostly for the waves. But yeah, we get to the boss. It looks like we don't have her abilities ready. That's fine. But essentially what happens is that she's going to be the primary debuffer. And then we have the lockdown from Sentinel, just spamming his A1 and then keeping the Magma Dragon controlled. So here we go. Now we get her debuffs there. Now Whisper should basically go ham whenever she can and get as many turns as possible. I guess we're a little bit out of sequence there. Maybe I think Lydia, like I said, I recently rebuilt her into the 4-piece protection, so she's a lot faster than she used to be. So I think she cut in a little bit too soon on the waves, and so that kind of messed up the rotation of the abilities. Nonetheless, you kind of see how it works. Newt does damage, Whisper does damage, Vlad does damage, and then Sentinel keeps everything under control. So Whisper going ham with the extra turns, and boom. Oh, one more. Oh, two more. She's Energizer Bunny. There we go. All right. Whisper doing her job and taking on the boss, 2 million damage. But yeah, once again, Lydia doing her job there, being the primary debuffer. And then just to showcase something a little bit more difficult, I have my team here for the Eternal Dragon. So we'll go ahead and run that one as well. You can see about a 90-second run or so. So the good thing about Lydia is she's also handy for certain waves where you have to deal with annoying mobs like torment and stuff. She will block that revival, so that's always handy. Can help speed things up. In this case, we don't really have to worry about that. I think that's more of a Frost Spider thing. But I guess while we're here, might as well talk about Frost Spider. She's great for the Frost Spider because her passive does work against the boss. So even if you don't have any HP burn whatsoever in your team, as long as she's there in the fight, doesn't matter if she's alive or dead, as long as she's present in the fight against the Frost Spider, she will block the revive of the spider regardless of whether or not there's HP burn out there, which obviously is very useful and can just make it a lot less painful when you know that the boss is going to die one time no matter what. So here we go. This is a great example of the benefit of having her have this resistance. That's not necessarily a recommendation for everyone to build her this way. It's obviously very gear intensive to do this, but this is a great example where she's the primary debuffer for the squad, and she wouldn't really be able to do that if she gets locked out by the Eternal Dragon. So everyone here happens to have, relatively speaking, high resistance, and so that just helps us, or helps everyone do their job without having their skills locked, so we don't have to worry about that. That's unfortunately 3% resist there on our attack, but nonetheless we have a cleanser, so no big deal. We're all ready for that. So a couple more hits here. Obviously we just got reset by killing the priest, and so we should be able to kill it fairly quickly. I think Atharon's going to get the final blow there. Boom. Yeah, cool. So yeah, literally the exact same time. That's crazy. But yeah, 90 seconds there, clear, or 90-second clear there. And yeah, Lydia once again doing the exact same job. Now, the main reason that I rebuilt her into 4-piece protection and cranked up her accuracy while maintaining the resistance was for the purpose, as you might have guessed, for Chimera. She's absolutely excellent for Chimera. Same thing. Primarily, she does the debuffing for the squad, but also she brings block buffs, which is handy for the ultimate form. You can block him from putting increased speed on himself, and any other forms you can block any of those buffs. And then she happens to work against Viper form as well, where block active skills is allowed, and you can lock out the Viper form and prevent him from doing his very, very annoying things. So she's like literally the best debuffer in the game when it comes to dealing with the Chimera clan boss. So she's definitely going to be a staple of your team for a very long time, or basically forever. I don't know if she could ever be replaced. She does a lot of different things for the team. But this is my team on Brutal. I've yet to run my team, the exact same one, but I've yet to run it on Nightmare. But yeah, you can see they're 140 something million, pretty decent. Marius taking advantage of him being as broken as he is, and then I'm pairing him with Harima in this case because we're getting the increased defense, and of course she has the defense scaling ability as well. So she's doing a decent amount compared to an enemy max HP champion. That's pretty decent to deal roughly half the damage just from raw damage. But yeah, Lydia again doing her job, primary debuffer, but also using the other aspects of her kit for dealing with the aspects of the Chimera. And how could I forget? Of course, the A1 has the fear, which is good for the ram form, especially after the rework a couple of weeks ago, where if you have a fear on the ram form, then you're taking a lot less damage from the reflect damage. You combine that with a leech champion. You can see I have Necmothar in my case, or on my team in my case, and basically your champions don't have to worry about murdering themselves if fear is out there on the ram form. So again, very, very versatile, very, very useful for the purposes of Chimera. And the intent of the 4-piece protection set, kind of like what I have on Alva here, protection set as well, is that she can just prevent her buffs from being stolen, or potentially prevent the buffs from being stolen on the ultimate form and or the Viper form. If I'm thinking like super, super long term, I'd like to at least have her in 6-piece protection, 2 pieces away from making that happen, but I would have to forfeit the perception sets, so I'd have to rework the stats to make sure that I'm still gaining what I want from that. I think a 5-piece protection starts to give you speed, if I'm not mistaken, so maybe I can drop the speed on, or swap out the pieces, focus more on accuracy resistance, and go a little bit less hard on speed, and then compensate for the loss of the perception set and whatnot. But again, that's kind of a stretch goal. I'm happy with their build at the moment. So in terms of other areas where you can use her, the question more so is what area can't you use her? Because I think she can basically do a lot of different things in various areas of the game, but I'll just highlight a couple more areas where I happen to use her that I'm just not going to showcase. But she's in my, all my potion keep teams. Of course, she's Void Affinity debuffer. She works well for those. was trying to speed farm. I used to run her in Minotaur for the same purpose, but it's such a weak dungeon at this point that you don't really need a debuffer to kill the waves and the boss relatively quickly. I want to shout her out for Ice Golem's Peak. This is one of the few bosses in the game with revivable minions as opposed to respawnable minions, and so her passive will obviously work against those minions as well if you have more of a speed team that kind of does a lot of damage, which can be very dangerous against the Ice Golem, of course, but if you have it in a secure, protected way in some form, unkillable, block damage, or just a really tanky team or some shield, ally protection, etc., you can kill the minions, do damage to the boss, and then she will of course block the revive of the minions at least one time. Obviously the cooldown on her passive is like 7 turns, so you're not necessarily going to be able to do it twice in a row easily, but sometimes that initial block revive can, you know, either revive people that might have died or just keep you going in the fight without having to worry about the minions for a little bit of time. It seems kind of circular, but obviously she is powerful in faction wars. Once you finish normal mode faction wars and claim her for your account, she's of course going to help you in the Dark Elf Crypt on hard and normal mode alike. And then I did mention that she can be somewhat useful in certain arena situations. If you're going against a Cardinal Cheese team with the Stone Skin, you're going against a Marichka, you kill everyone, she tries to revive the entire team, it gets blocked by a Lydia. That was very common during the initial release of Taurus and Marichka before Stone Skin kind of took over, and it's a little bit harder to kind of use Lydia in that context. Or she's just good against general like annoying AoE revivers, like I mentioned before, a Duchess, a Lady Noelle, an Ursula the Mourner if you talk about epic. So stuff like that, she's great for that purpose of filling out a team, especially when you can see the team that you're going against. To Classic Arena, Tag Team Arena, she can help you counter certain types of strategies. Clan bosses, she's not much of a Demon Lord champion, but there are a couple of speed tunes. I used to run a team with her on it, her and like Brogni and Iron Brago and that kind of super tankiness going on there. But Hydra, as we talked about it before, you run her in a curse set, you run her in a reflex and turn off the A3 and stuff like that. She can be very, very useful for a Hydra team. Obviously the debuffing is the primary thing, but also somewhat underrated aspect. As long as you have the strengthen buff out there on your team, you won't get the weaken from, I think, the Head of Suffering when he does his AoE A1. So that can protect your team by one, strengthen makes you take less damage, of course, but preventing your team from getting weakened also helps you take less damage. And then of course we highlighted her in Chimera. In terms of Doom Tower, we showcased a couple, or definitely a handful of bosses that I use her in, but I think I talked about all of the areas, or the ones I use her in. But yeah, Magma Dragon, both variations, Frostbiter, and then the Eternal Dragon. Those are the teams that she's on my team, or on my account. And then lastly, of course, if you are progressing into the Cursed City, she can definitely help you whenever she qualifies. Again, she's the primary debuffer, or going to be the primary debuffer for your squad. And again, that block revive / reviving of your allies can be very, very clutch in certain situations, because it will, you know, be a kind of a break in case of emergency type situation. Or she might just deny that, you know, again, that enemy Duchess from reviving the whole team, or the enemy whatever Tormund from reviving himself and stuff like that. So very, very useful in PvE encounters. So there you have it. That is my free-to-play champion showcase for Lydia the Deathsiren. Let me know in the comment section down below, what is your build for your Lydia, and then I will try to guess how far you are in terms of your progression into the game. We'll see if my theory is correct about the Lydia build being indicative of your progression level. If you didn't already know, the champions selected in this series are chosen by you guys. I put out a poll on my community tab page asking you guys, out of 4 options, which champion you'd like to see next for the Champion Showcase series. So be sure to check out my community tab page after this video goes live and vote on who's going to be featured next. But I will mention a caveat here that by default, I will be covering Marius and Empress ideally soon. We'll see. But those are guaranteed, so I don't have to mention those two in the comments of that post. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. Really does help out the channel. And also feel free to hit the subscribe button down below if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.